Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am going to be using a paper pumpkin card subscription to create a scrapbook layout. Now I have the Autumn Toile paper here on my desk because it coordinates, and I might bring some of this paper in, but the majority of this layout is going to be using this card kit. So you can see how it's a little bit different, but yet coordinates. So let me show you the paper really quick. This is beautiful fall inspired paper. And when I did my catalog walkthrough, I kind of suggested it would be great for hunting because some of the papers like this one and this one here, or the fox, but not only hunting, but just being outdoors, right? But also great for fall. I am loving this pumpkin patch paper because my photos here, my mom and I were visiting our local cider brewery, and they have an annual fall festival every year, and it's just really a cool place to be. There's music and live music and vendors, and of course a pumpkin patch. And there's my mom. Really funny story. We did not mean to dress like twins, but I said, hey, wear fall colors, and we both show up in the exact same brown. So you can see that these papers with the pumpkins and the browns are going to coordinate beautifully. So I have 5 photos, but this one is on one 4x6. So it's like a, set of 4x6 photos here, and then a 3x4. So I know right where I'm going with this layout because I'm using an inspiration piece from Becky Adams from scrapbookingcards.com. I'll show you that here in just a moment. But with this kit, now this is Paper Pumpkin, which is a monthly subscription. But if you're a Paper Pumpkin subscriber, you can buy the refills of these kits, and at the time of filming this layout, this is still available. So I started punching everything out, and I was going to assemble the cards, and then got inspired to create a layout with the products. So I'll show you one each of the cards in the end, but let's go ahead and jump right in to our project here. I'm probably going to be using these card bases, but let me scooch these out of the way. And I do want to mention you get 3 sheets of each paper. I only have a set of 2 here of each one just to kind of show you what's in the pack. And I do have a lot of scraps because I've already cut into this, so some of those papers are missing. But let me go ahead and grab my verse mats and we'll jump right in. This is going to be a double page layout, and I am creating a frame style layout. So my base is going to be this early espresso. This is the 2 tones. You can see the 2 different shades there. And I am using the darker side for my base. And then for my background piece, I am using basic beige. This is a great color for fall. And I have trimmed this down to 11.5. Well, it's 11 3/4 by 11.5, and that gives me a 1/4 inch border around the top, outside edge, and the bottom. That way they look like one continuous 12 by 24 canvas, and they meet in the middle there. I have 2 strips of this gorgeous pumpkin paper. This would be really pretty for a fall garden too. But these are 11 3/4 by 4 inches, and we'll put these right here. So technically, you could trim this paper smaller so you're not wasting what's behind here, and I think I might do that. Originally, I was thinking I would cut out this back here, and then I would need that. But I have more of the early espresso than I do basic beige, so I think we'll save the basic beige. As part of this fall collection, they have this gorgeous earthen metallic paper, and it's like this coppery bronze. So I love having a little strip to finish off the transition between the pattern paper and the background here. So you could do the early espresso, but when you can bring in a little shimmer and shine, I think it looks amazing. And I'm probably going to end up embossing that, but we will wait on that detail for now. For my photos, I've got this 4x6 picture of myself, and I'm going to put this one over here. And then 2 roughly 3x4. They're actually a little smaller than 3x4, so we could have that white border. So the finished result of this is a 4x6. That's going to sit right about there. And then my mom is looking into the layout, so we'll place her here. And then I've got a selfie of both my mom and I thought this might look good right in this area here. So I want to make sure these are on the same plane and the bottom of these are on the same plane. Here's my inspiration layout. Again, this is Becky Adams, and it was featured in Scrapbook and Cards magazine. And I love this layout. So you can see how I got the inspiration for the photos. Now you'll notice I have an additional photo there. She only has the 4. I've got an extra, so I'm changing that up. And her title is on the right. I've reversed it. So my title is going to be over here. And I'm going to, I'm inspired by some of her elements, but she's got just some photo mats, and I think I want to bring in a lot of those card bases behind this area here. These are the card bases included in the Paper Pumpkin card kit. So if you make it exactly as is, you can make 9 cards. So there's 3 of each card base design here. This one is this nice, kind of like a little woven linen pattern. And then what a lot of us like to do is if you're making the cards, cut your card bases in half and then just attach it to a cardstock base. And then you have it double the amount of cards because you can use the stamps and whatnot to stretch the embellishments. Now you'll notice this is one of the pattern papers in this paper collection here. So I think since they're the same, I'm going to use the pattern paper rather than the card base. But I actually want to use these, I think. I really like how they're kind of scaled down. So if you look at this pattern here, this is where this came from. And this one's going to be a lot busier behind my photos. If I'm using a pattern paper like this, I would probably put it on the side or maybe across the bottom, but not necessarily behind my photos unless I was using an extra wide photo mat. But in this case, since I have this one, we get the look, but since it's a tonal, tone-on-tone type pattern, it scales it down a little bit and it's not overwhelming to your photos. So I'm thinking kind of something like this. And then I want to mat these on darker brown. So again, we could use the card bases, but since I have the pattern paper, I think I'll save the card bases for cards and just use the paper. But I think that's going to look really nice. So I went ahead and cut an extra wide photo mat here. These are 5 by 7. So that gives us a nice big border around our photo. So we have this double mat. The white really makes it stand out on the background. And then we have the pattern paper behind it. So I think I'm going to butt this one all the way up to the edge. And that way I can actually, if I can grab it, bring my card base out further and have more of that showing. And then I don't need it to go all the way to the edge. And then I think, well, I brought another pattern in for this one. So I might do another one for that, but for now, let's just go with the 2. And then we can bring these pattern or card bases in. But I think if I bump this up, I can actually cut this one and get away with using just 2 card bases. And then I can make this one for an actual card. So I went ahead and cut this one at 5.5. So now I could put that piece over there and then have this one here. So I am lining it up to where we're at the 2 and the 10. So we have an even border there, and then we'll overlap this just a bit here. And then actually for this one, let's see if I go right about here, I can trim this one down as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I just love to get the most out of my supplies, so I want to save this. So I trimmed this one down to 5 inches. That's going to sit right there. And then we'll bring this in. And then we can use this scrap here. I can even trim that down, but now it looks like one continuous border going all the way across there. And then I have this piece that I saved, and this, you can make some of those if you cut your card base in half. So we can use 1/2 to create it as designed. And now we have this nice little layering piece. So for the other side, you could do something like that and make a bonus card with that extra piece you saved. Off camera, I went ahead and inked up the edges of all my pattern paper and got those card bases tacked down. These are loose because I'm not sure what height I want to have them at yet, but I did, remove all of this sections just to stretch those card bases. And then I cut down that too because I thought, well, you're not going to see it might as well save it. So I also inked up the edges of the photo with early espresso. Now, one thing on my inspiration layout from Becky Adams, she had stitching. She does a lot of stitching. I love the look, but quite honestly, I don't want to take the time to do it. So we're going to do some faux stitching. I grabbed this Stitched Together stamp set. This is from my stash. This was a Close to My Heart stamp. And I selected this trio of strings. Now, if you don't have a stitching stamp, just take a journaling pen. Maybe you have, I love these Le Pen journaling pens. There's a brown one. It's called Sepia. And you can do like little doodle lines around the edge and get the exact same look. And it's a fun little detail. So that's another idea if you don't have the stitching stamps here. But since I do, I'm going to go ahead and use it and make it earn its keep because it's taking up space on my shelf, right? So let's go ahead and start. I think I'm going to start right up here. Let's go ahead and get this good and inky. Now I'm intentionally starting my stitching lines in this corner because the other ends are going to disappear under layers and it won't matter to line them up. So we've got our first line there. And then actually, let me go ahead and turn this. I find it easiest to line it up in that orientation. And then we'll line up our corner. So you see we need to go a little bit further. So let's protect the pattern paper with a piece of scrap computer paper and then line up our stitching line. And then I don't think, yeah, we have a little bit of a gap. So we need to line that up one more time and bridge the gap there. I think that looks pretty good. Let me clean this up here, bring it back into frame for you. We are ready for the embellishing. So we've got lots of fun elements in this box. There's leaves and a cute little fox. So the original, they do come in this little carrier sheet and you just pop them out. It's so easy. So there's these little frames, which I don't think I'm going to use this on the layout, but you can see how they have used them in that card design there. And then there's a little stamp that comes with it. So the refills, if you get a refill, they don't come with the stamp. So it's just like the extra components. But there's little acorns and the little pumpkins that match these pumpkins and some leaves. And you know what? That would be really cute too. There's 3 different leaves and then the acorns. You could have stamped like a little, you could even have gone like a tone on tone so it was subtle, but a leaf border around there too. That would be fun. But we have these little card fronts that are like a little row of corn, and you'll see there's corn stalks here and in here, and I think this would look really cute. So these are on the brown card bases. So you would just fold that and then you'd pop this right on the front, and it does have gold foiling around the edge there. If you can kind of see that catching the light. And then they have the sentiments and a little fox. So it looks like we've got some pumpkins there. These just come together so easy. And then there's the fox, and then you would stamp thinking of you. They give you the little sentiment spots here. Some of them are done already, thank you, but like this one, or thankful, this for this card design, you would just use this little sentiment spot and stamp thinking of you, which is what they have designed. But if you didn't want that, you could just make it a thank you card or something like that. And this is so cute. So here's the finished. I'm going to do these after I finish my layout, but you can see there's the birds in the background and the little sentiment, and that fox is so cute. But I want to use this. Well, let's kind of see if we can recreate this scene. And maybe the word thankful, because I'm absolutely thankful for spending time with my mom and having this really cool pumpkin fall festival. And then we have these clusters of leaves. So there's lots of these. And then there's these bronzy leaves, which match that earthen metallic paper. So you can see them kind of, I'm trying to catch the light there. Anyway, I think you can see them, they're shiny. So there's a lot of things to create. We can use some of the sentiment spots to maybe stamp a little wordy bit on. There's some ribbon, but let's start playing with this here. So it kind of gets lost on this pattern paper. So in the inspiration sketch, she has a bunch of leaves kind of coming out, but what if we place this kind of underneath a photo and sneak that maybe right there? and then we can build our little scene. So actually, let's drop this down a little more so we can see more of that cute scene. So pumpkins, and then we could put the fox right here. And then rather than like up here, let's just have this anchoring the pumpkins there. So they're like sitting on this shelf. And then the little fox, that actually looks really cute. And then I know I want a cluster over here. And then I know I want one here. So this is, easy for me to think in the visual triangle. And then we can just kind of, well, we have more. So we can maybe tuck this. Let's actually go on top of the photo. We have a lot of, unimportant space up here, so we can layer. And then what if we just tuck in some of these bronzy leaves? And to each of these clusters here, maybe some kind of there. And then over here, I did not pre-plan this embellishment part. These just make it super easy when everything's done for you. So one thing I like to do is like have something on top of the photo when I'm embellishing. So these are kind of going under, and I feel like it needs like a top piece. So you could stamp like a little sentiment or have like this kind of over the top finishing it off. But I do have these acorns. So as part of this paper pumpkin, they have dies that go along with the card kits. They coordinate with 3 months, and the little acorn, and I'm not seeing this online, so it might be gone, but I have them and I'm going to use them. So I die cut that from the Country Woods wood grain paper. I've actually used these quite a bit here on my channel already, but see how that just finishes that off with a little acorn? So maybe we could do something like that. I also have the Amber Autumn stamp set, and you'll see this little cluster of pumpkins and gourds and corn are what you see in the paper. So it's this exact thing, just a little bit bigger. And I already have one of those stamped and colored because we had this left over from making cards. Here's one I used on a card, and it's got that same earthen metallic paper and some embossing and a little bit of this woven ribbon here. And it's just such a pretty little cluster of pumpkins. So I've got that. We might as well use it. I would show you the coloring process and everything, so I apologize. I already have this done. But since it's handy, I'm going to use it. So what if we've got a lot of room over here? So I feel like maybe this area could support this larger pumpkin. And this gives it some variety too. I don't necessarily like the exact same elements in all of my, you want the same, you want them to coordinate, but not necessarily be identical. So maybe we could do something like that. This way we have the little fox here, and we've got these pumpkins here. Let's work on the title. I've been on a kick using these Party Alpha dies for my title, and I'm thinking, so, they are big, so you kind of need to have smaller titles, but I have this on my desk. This is the bonus paper pumpkin die set where the acorn came from, and there is this word hello, so I'm thinking we could do hello fall. On the inspiration layout, she has the title, of course it's on this side, but down on the bottom. And we do have plenty of room up or down here. So I'll have to cut the L twice, but I love mixing and matching fonts. So I was thinking I could do Hello Fall there. We also have this space up here. So I'm going to cut this from that earthen metallic paper to bring it. We have it here in the border and then in the leaves. So I think that'll look really pretty. I've gone ahead and die cut the word fall. Isn't that so pretty? I just love the shine. So let's see how that looks down here on the bottom. It does stand out against the pattern paper. I've cut hello from Cajun Craze. That one maybe not so much. Let's see what it looks like. I do like it down there, but I also need room for my journaling. So if we can fit it in this space, that's kind of perfect with the height. You know what? I think I like it there better. Let's go with that. And then I have this embossing folder that's part of this collection. It's called Gathering Leaves, and this paper just embosses beautifully. So we're going to put a little detail in here. I'll run this through my die cutting machine off camera, And then aren't those pretty? They're just these little leaf elements there, and it adds so much character to that foil paper, which already looks amazing on its own. So we'll get those situated and layer this hello. I am wondering, this is the large maple leaf die from the Gathering Moments dies, and I've used these several times. You can use the insert to put stitching holes, which you don't have to stitch. You can just put the holes, or you can use the outline. And I'm looking at these and I feel like they're not really standing out. They're kind of blending into the paper. So I'm wondering if this as a base would be good. And I'm seeing lots of Cajun Craze. So we've got it here and then here. So I'm thinking this big pop of color might be really pretty. So let's try it. I do love these big fall leaves. They really make a statement on your page. And you know what? That is exactly what it needed. But let's add some character to this leaf. So I have this plaid embossing folder. And, plaid, that's very fallish, right? It's like warm and cozy. So I want to sand the lines here. So you can see I used white corn. It kind of cracked and is showing that white inner, but that's okay. We want to bring that out. So I have a simple nail file and I am sanding the raised edges, which just further reveals that plaid pattern. I'm also sanding the edges of the leaf to further define them, and it just gives it a really cool distressed worn texture. I've already seen so many talented demonstrators do some really fun things with these leaves, from crumpling them up, and then I have stamped them with the splatter stamp. You can add stitching. I've seen it like an ombre ink blending look, and they all look so amazing. So I did go ahead and create one for the opposite side here, just to kind of counterbalance that and anchor our embellishment cluster over here. Let's bring our little elements back in, and I do think that's looking good. We need more of these little leaves though. So I grabbed one more from the card box there. Actually, let's kind of maybe put this here. No, that looks funny. What about right here? Yes, that looks good. I feel like I want a little more of the Cajun Craze up top here. So I was brainstorming and thought maybe a banner. They're always cute. This is from my stash, did a little stash diving. This is the banner alphabet die set, and it has these dies in here. So you could totally cut these by hand. Just little scraps of paper and triangles, and then the little pennant banner there. So I thought these might be really cute strung across the page. So I always love adding these whenever you feel like you need a little something something. Plus, it's a great way to use up scraps if you have especially patterned paper. So I'm rotating them every other with the triangle and the pennant, or the pennant and the little banner here. And I think that's cute. I think that might look really fun. I'm going to use this area down here for my journaling. So I'm just getting a rough measurement and then I will type it up, and I printed it out on vellum. And this allows that background paper to show through, but you can still read the journaling. It's too busy of a background paper for the clear sticker paper, so the vellum works well. Now, these are the Cajun Craze and Gold Sparkle Dots, which go along with this fall collection. So I'm using the smaller ones to connect my little banner pennant decorative element up top, and then I want to add just a few of them around each cluster. So I'm mainly putting them on the basic beige background because they're not really showing up in that pattern paper. They kind of get lost. So maybe I still want one down here. What if we stuck it kind of on the vellum? I think that works. And let's put another one right there. I'm just doing 3 in each cluster. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to bring some cards in for you, but I wanted to hold this up so you can see all of that embossed detail and the shininess of the title. It's so pretty. I love the stitching lines around the border. And we covered up a lot of it over here, but that's okay. You can still kind of see it there. And yeah, these elements are all working together so beautifully. I put a few of the paper pumpkin cards together. Now these I put together as shown. I did cut those card bases in half, so I have lots of leftovers. So this one I popped up the fox, the pumpkin, and the just a note. on foam tape. You can see those have dimension. And on this one, I popped up the whole panel, giving it dimension. So I didn't want it to be 2 layers thick. So here I put these right on the decorative base there. But I almost prefer the background against the card base and then these popped up. I think you can kind of appreciate them more. So again, I made those as shown in the instructions. And then for this one, so remember I used some of these card bases here. So I did cut these in half and then I'll put them on regular cardstock card base. This one I made as shown. I popped up the frame on foam tape and I added a little bit of bling. They don't have the bling in the example, so I did add that. And then this one, I thought it'd be really fun to turn this into a shaker card. So because it's popped up, you have this perfect little shaker window. And I had some fall colored sequins in my stash from close to my heart. So I used a piece of acetate and then just trapped the sequins inside. And I thought this was a really great way to step this up and turn it into a shaker card. Now this one right here is very similar, although I cut the little linen woven card base in half. So you can see they stamped the leaves on the background. I went ahead and skipped that part. I just wanted it a little more simple. You can see how they have tucked the ribbon in. I did my ribbon a little bit differently. I added some bling. I put it on a Cajun Craze card base. And then on the inside, I used the other half of that and then stamped a little acorn and some leaves and put a little bit of that brown card base on the inside. So I thought that was kind of a fun little look. And I ran out of time to work on the rest of the cards, but I still have lots of leftover bits. So I have, several card bases. I'll probably end up cutting all of these in half and stretching the kit even more. And then you can see I've got, this piece here. Like I said, I'll probably end up putting this one here. I'll eventually finish them and share them over on my Instagram and Facebook account. But lots of extra pieces, more ribbon, more leaves, lots of fun. So you can really stretch these and then get creative making some alternative projects. But they do make great embellishments for your scrapbook layouts too. Everything I've used to create this layout is listed in the description box below, and I hope you enjoyed watching how I turn this card kit into a scrapbook layout. And thank you so much for spending time with me. I'll see you very soon here on YouTube.